Dr. Liz, welcome to Podcastina.
Thank you so much for having me. Cutest name ever for a podcast. I love it.
Thank you. I love that we're starting with flattery. I'm not mad about it.
Let's just keep going. It's great.
So I really would love to know, there's apparently a gap between women-owned businesses and successful businesses, and it's very uneven. And I would love to just start with, what the heck is that?
Okay, well, let's define success first and foremost, right? Like, I do not have $1 million business, but I have a very successful business in that it pays for all of my bills and then some, take a couple vacations a year, get to have a paid off car, really, really nice stuff like that. And then more than that, I only work about 3 days a week. When I look at like the grand total of my calendar, I get to pick my kid up from school and like not work in the afternoons and evenings when he's with me. So in that regard, I have a successful business. What you're talking about is the gap between the 48% of businesses that are owned by women in the United States. I don't know other countries, don't ask me. And then the 4% of businesses that women own that actually break the $1 million mark. So when we look at the grand totality of businesses registered in the United States, only 4% of them are breaking $1 million that are owned by women, which means that 96% of the businesses here in the United States that break $1 million or more in revenue are owned by men. And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with men owning businesses, right? My husband's starting a business, love men, all about it. The issue comes in this leadership gap between who is being paid attention to in the marketplace when we think about what it means to lead a company and be a leader, and whose ideas are brought to the forefront in innovation, and who is just there trying to make money at what they're doing. And this can look like all sorts of different things, but a huge driver of this is that lots and lots and lots of women own their own stake in multi-level marketing businesses. So they get drawn in, right? Maybe they're taking time off from, a corporate career, or they're lawyers, or, whatever. Maybe they've been working in some sort of industry that doesn't require higher education. Lots and lots of ways that this can look, but they step back from a career that looks more traditional and more in alignment with what a lot of men pursue. And they get into these multi-level marketing companies, and they end up spending a lot of money with the premise that they're going to be able to make a lot of money back. And so these businesses, quote unquote, are actually little tiny subsidiaries of larger companies, corporations that are making a shit ton of money on the backs of women. I didn't ask, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
I'm
yeah.
a little bit cussing. Okay, great. I'm like, oh no. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the leadership gap within $1 million plus revenue companies. 4% of companies that break $1 million in the US are owned by women, and they own about half of companies registered here in the US. So that's the gap we're talking about.
So is that gap predominantly driven by the fact that women are getting pulled into, and when we say MLM, we're kind of speaking pejoratively about that type of business, that it's not ideal.
Yeah. I'll speak badly about MLMs all day long.
We totally can. But is that what is creating that gap, is because women are maybe choosing to go into businesses that are technically registered as business that make up that 48% that you're referring to, but it's not necessarily a good domain for authentic entrepreneurship with real scalability?
This is where my sociology skills are far outpacing my abilities as a statistician, because I'm terrible at statistics, and in general, in terms of calculating myself, I can rattle them off. In terms of knowing the exact reasons why there's such a huge gap, I can only speak to MLMs as a contributing factor. What I can speak to in terms of my research from a qualitative standpoint, not from a quantitative standpoint, can speak to my own experience moving from being a coach in the trauma-informed space and in divorce coaching, which was where I started my coaching journey, moving into business coaching and drawing more on my background as an executive. The experience that I had was I was working with 3 different women. They were divorce coaching clients. And they said, I have to go get a job. I'm getting a divorce. I have children at home. I'm not going to get alimony. I'm not going to get child support enough to pay for that. And this is not like a opening can of worms conversation about alimony or anything like that. But they said, I can't take on a traditional job. I can't go into a 9-to-5 position because I have little kids and they're at home and they've been used to a stay-at-home mom, and I can't afford childcare. I'm in the DC metro region and childcare is absolutely insane. They said, for me to afford childcare for 2 kids, I'm going to eat through all of that income that I could possibly make. What do I do? And so with boom, 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 each of these 3, we ended up helping like stand up new businesses where it was like, okay, well, what do you really like to do? And what are you good at? And how do we monetize it? And that's how my journey from being a person who ran companies and have owned companies into helping other people set up companies was out of necessity, that these 3 women were just like, I don't know what to do, but I have to have some income. And I was like, well, I guess it's time to start a business. Let's go. So I think that's a convoluted answer to your question, but that's where I'm at.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And as an entrepreneur, if you want to call it what I do, that, which it is, I mean, I kind of just wanted to get out from under the just false sense of security that you get with a quote unquote regular job, because I had very traditional office jobs coming out of college and I kind of had no sense of direction. And I am very fortunate that it was passion that led me into comedy and podcasting, and not this sort of, oh my God, I'm in a space where my life is set up in a way that I have to, I have kids at home and I need to like do something where I can be home with them. So I understand that necessity drives a lot of people's decisions. But with, I think, entrepreneurship in general, I always kind of try to encourage people that if there is anything that is like their heart's desire that could realistically be a career, that they should go for it, because I do think that job security is a facade. I mean, I see people at anywhere from like a small mom and pop shop all the way up to like a Google or a big tech conglomerate. Like, you're really never safe. You could get laid off, ownership could change, the economy changes, no matter what your job is, it's never really secure. So if you have it within you to go down that route of entrepreneurship, why not? At least like give it a try if you're able to, because you might end up working for yourself and loving it. And that's kind of the only way, I think, to really remove a glass ceiling of what you could make.
Yeah, I like agree with like 99% of that. I don't know about the like removing glass ceiling. I think, I was at my son's dad's law school graduation. This was like 15 years ago. And I was sitting next to an older woman who had gone to law school, was practicing as an attorney. And I'm looking out at this graduating class. It's a top tier university, very prestigious. And more than half of them were new little baby female lawyers. And I was sitting next to this woman, and she said when she graduated law school in the 70s, there were only 10 women in her graduating class, right? And when I think about my girlfriends who are attorneys, like just off the top of my head, like the first 3 that come to mind, they're like well above the $1 million mark. And so I don't know that there's like a specific industry that bottlenecks women more than other spaces, but I do think that we're still set up in such a way where when we talk about the wage gap, a lot of it is driven by the time that many women either choose or by necessity stay out of the workplace. And then they have this, gap in their resume that it makes it difficult for them to overcome in a traditional setting. But if they start a business, they're no longer like stacked up against this, right? Like if Joe and Mary are like both in the same career and do, and then Mary gets pregnant, she takes some time off, boop, 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 right? Like her career restarts at this space, and closing this gap is very, very difficult. Whereas if she takes some time off here and all of a sudden she starts a business and it's very successful and she does the work, like this can happen for sure. But I think it's really tempting to like draw a blanket statement and be like, and therefore that's always the case. Cause I don't think that that's true. I work with men and with women. I work with women who are in careers where they're working for other people, working for organizations, running organizations. And I obviously work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. And I think there's so many ways to be financially, I don't want to say successful, but financially stable. I think there's so many ways to generate income that supports yourself. It's just a matter of like what's going to light you up, one, and then what's going to feel sustainable. Like I know for me, my work, like I would do this work even if I was doing it for free. I would figure out, I would go drive Lyft at night. Like this is what I do and I love it. Lights me up. And then it also gives me this life where, you know, like my son's about to be 12. I've got 6 years on the clock where, you know, he's not yet out of the house and going and doing a career. And I just like want to soak up every single one of those seconds with him. Right. And if that meant that like my job, I had to compete, like that quality time was in competition with a job. Like I would lose out on so much.
The priority piece is so important. So I'm glad that you're touching on that, because, and also entrepreneurship isn't cut out for everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we talk about women in business, you know, I want to include those people that are like at law firms or at tech companies or anywhere they are, and just more so speak to the upward mobility part of it, whether that is for your own business that you're starting or you're working for somebody else. There's this interesting, I mean to say annoying, pejorative language. The boss bitch of it all, that you go to TJ Maxx and you walk around and things are like boss babe, boss bitch. And it's so infuriating because number one, there's no male equivalent. So to me, it just feels denigrative anytime you see that kind of stuff. And like, what the heck is that? Are we at all on a path to get away from that type of language so that women can just go ahead and succeed without there being like sprinkles and glitter all over our success? Because it grosses me out.
I love everything about what you just said. I just want to like marinate in this question. So I was all in on that language. It felt really authentic in terms of being able to like allow myself to be abrasive. I'm almost 6 feet tall. I have a very commanding presence, and I have moderated that. I've held myself back in a lot of ways from the time I was probably 13, 14 years old and got involved in student government. I was told you have a very intimidating presence and you have to be kind of like aware of that. And I like took that to heart and tried to like tone down a lot of how I present myself to other people. And the like boss bitch vibe allowed me to feel really just like big dick energy around like, yeah, like I'm 5'11", I'm noisy, I cuss, like I'm going to come at you with a bunch of different facts that you probably are not super interested in hearing because they refute your worldview, and you're going to fucking deal with it. I actually led retreats. I called them boss bitch retreats. And it was with that same like swaggery vibe of just like, can you allow yourself to step out of this like box that you're told to be in of like sugar and spice and everything nice. Like I am not in any way, shape, or form interested in being palatable to people. I'm interested in being approachable. I'm interested in being like genuinely kind and invested in other people. But when it comes to like placating someone, I'm just not here for it. That being said, I agree with you. And I've kind of evolved past that language. It no longer feels authentic. But it served a purpose for me personally. And actually one of the keynotes that I give is called Boss versus Bitch, Stepping into Assertive Leadership. So I've come on a full circle journey with that word.
What do you think are some of the kind of overlooked issues that women specifically have in business besides just the wage gap? Because people talk about that. We've kind of, at this point, figured out what that is. It's a lot of catching up just historically. And again, especially when maternity leave comes into play, that's pretty obvious. But what are some of the things that are less obvious that are holding us back in business?
I think that women are not diagnosed. Well, I don't think. I am clear on the statistics that show us that women are underdiagnosed when it comes to ADHD and autism. And for me, I'm going to ballpark it at 80% of my clients have ADHD diagnosed, right? And if someone is talking to me 20 minutes into their discovery call and I'm like, ooh, aruga, right? I will say to them, I'd really like to work with you. I need you to go see X, Y, or Z. I have a couple referral sources that I suggest, but I'm always like, Google around and see what you like. But I ask that they go get screened for ADHD before we start our work together, because it's so often like viewed as burnout, or just she's disorganized, or she has a hard time staying on top of deadlines, when in reality there's like an underlying neurological difference. So I think that that's like a huge aspect of this, is that women have to mask their innate traits, right? Neurodivergent traits. And what gets kind of spit out in the output of that looks a lot like disorganization, not being able to stay on top of deadlines, losing things, people that spend hours looking for stuff that's under a pile on their desk. So I think that women being expected to perform at high levels without support to give them tools and resources to be able to really work with their brains, as opposed to berate themselves for not being able to perform in ways that other people can, is a huge aspect of this.
Yeah, I hadn't, I'm processing that because I always kind of think back to one of my dear friends, and she has severe ADHD. She's well aware. I don't know whether she's been clinically tested, but she doesn't need to be. It's textbook. And for me, I always was able to witness, because it's so easy when it's not you and you're just observing, to see that she was great at actually coming up with ideas, but it was the follow through that was missing. So she would get so excited about some kind of idea, and she would take the step of like buying all the things that you need to get it started. And that was, that was where it ended. Like there was no, just kind of buckling down, doing the stuff that sucks to do in the beginning, doing the things that you have to do for free for sometimes years before you see any kind of results. And I hate to just call it a lack of discipline, because it is just more so a lack of her recognizing what tools she needs to implement to get past the ADHD, because it would take a framework that you have to hand yourself. No boss is going to hand it to you.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I do think there's workspaces where people are coming to understand that this is an issue. I was actually at a friend's law firm a couple of weeks ago, and she had a sign that was to hang on the door. And I should say, this is like a multi-million-dollar, top-performing, top 1,000 fastest-growing business in the U.S. And there was a sign in the office to hang on different doors that says, in a therapy session, don't disturb, right? And this is like a culture within their law firm that says, you're supposed to prioritize how your brain works, because we really need it to work well. Thank you very much. But yeah, what you're describing, I call that being ideaphoric, right? Like you have a euphoria around something, and it's an idea, right? Like you're euphoric about a particular idea. And once that like neurotransmitter, like jolt of dopamine kicks off, right, you've got a lot of energy, but then when the actual executive functioning needs to come in so that you can have that follow through, there's just simply not like gas in the tank to be able to do that and to function in your day-to-day life. And so there's just, like, something's going to give, and it's not going to be like preparing dinner for yourself. And so we have these like initial bursts that produce a lot of dopamine in the brain that then don't have that like, here we're coming in to make it sustainable.
Okay, good. I'm so happy that we're talking about this. This wasn't even planned as one of my questions for you, but I just spoke to an ADHD coach a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so if anyone is listening to this and it's resonating that they experience this ideaphoria, which what a great word, by the way, that there are ways to figure out your little dopaminergic cheats in life. So if you're stuck in this particular phase and you need to implement the follow through, work on the ADHD portion of it, not so much worry about like don't worry about the business side of it, but you're right. Put in the framework that works for your particular neuro needs.
Yeah, well, and find people to partner with who can do the things you can't do. Like my business goes better. Like I see like business is going good, business improves, business improves when I remind myself that my brain doesn't have to function in all the ways. It can just function in the ways that it's really good at. if I have the humility and willingness and follow through to go find people that can hold me accountable for the things that I can't do well, right? Bookkeepers, tax people. I just hired someone to design a website for me for the first time ever. I've never had a website designer ever, because I was like, I don't just want the design. I'm really great at that. What I need is like the functional capability and the SEO and all this stuff that like I didn't really like have a much of a concern about for a long time. And I'm like, okay, I want to take this to the next level. I don't know how to do that. And what I see a lot of women with ADHD do, undiagnosed especially, is they get into this place where they tell themselves they have to do it. Either they don't have the resources to invest, or it's simple, I should be able to do this. And what ends up happening is task paralysis sets in and you're not able to actually do the thing. And then it's like this downward kind of like flushing a toilet, because you tell yourself, I have to do the thing, and your brain's like, right? And you don't have the like neuro infrastructure to do it well, I should say. Anyone can like plow through a lot of different stuff, right? But then you add the like self-guilt and the shame. I should be able to do this. And that depletes your ability further to actually move forward with something, because now all of a sudden you've really like robbed yourself of all of these kind of feel-good chemicals that are going to make it possible. It's this. So the more stuck you are, the less you have in terms of resources to get unstuck, because you beat yourself up, and it further depletes that get it done oxygen tank.
Yeah, and that can quickly spiral out of hand. But speaking of being able to hire resources and hiring people to help you, another issue, and this is not just a female issue, but I think we're kind of having the conversation about how to help women in business. So sorry, fellas, but maybe you can relate to this too. Once we hire that person, how the heck can we express our expectations?
Okay, this is where hiring people who are really good comes in. I don't have expectations for my tax people. They have expectations for me. They have expectations of when stuff is due, when I need to turn things over to them, how often I need to be in touch with them, how quickly I need to reach out to them if I feel stuck. My expectations for them is that I don't get audited and that, not because I have anything to hide. I just like don't want to go through the pain in the ass of it. Right. Like my expectations are like, do my taxes and do them properly. That's it. Like those are my only expectations. What their job is to manage up. Right. Like I hired them, but I don't know how to do what they do. And like my publicist who's the one that connected us, right? This is the year I'm doing a TEDx talk. It's happening, non-negotiable. And I've been doing a ton of research on like which ones to apply for and applying them on, right? And it was like so slow going. And when I partnered up with Charlotte, all of a sudden I've got like lots of different options coming my way in terms of what I should apply for and like where my focus should be. So all of a sudden it went from, I have all these technical details in addition to the actual like write the speech part, right? To she's telling me what I have to do. It's her job as an expert to manage up and tell me what to do. Like I work for her in terms of what needs to happen. So the same as if you were to hire a personal trainer, right? So pragmatic, right? Like Susan, Janice, all you people listening out there, this is how you do this. Same way that you would hire a personal trainer. If you were to walk into a gym and be like, hey, I want to, have a firmer butt and like work on my biceps so that they look amazing this summer, right? You wouldn't go to a personal trainer and be like, my expectations for you are that you like do X, Y, and Z. You'd be like, I want a better butt and better arms. Can you help me with that? Right. And then through conversations as you're in the process of finding someone, they're like, oh yeah, biceps are my specialty. And like, here's 3 before and after clients, and here's a testimonial, and you can call them. Right. And you have a high level of confidence that this person can get it done. It's not your job to tell them what you expect. It's your job to tell them your goals. And then for them to reflect back to you that they're someone that can make that happen. And if you don't have a high level of confidence that they're going to be able to wrangle you and your little ADHD squirrel brain, do not hire them.
about when you do hire the person and things go amiss? Or let's say you have a team, right? And maybe someone's just not pulling their own weight and you have very minimal time. Most likely in this scenario, you're busy, so you're hiring out for a good reason, and people are just not quite performing. How do we handle that instead of making ourselves small? Because I know personally that I crumble sometimes when it's time to give criticism to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is such a great question. I actually had this question come. I was working with someone who was experiencing exactly this. She owned a business, a very, very, very complicated business, complicated business, and she had hired someone to do a pretty huge task, and there was a big price tag associated with what she was paying this woman, and the woman was not following through, and my client was just like trying, she was being a girl about it. She was being so nice and just like really making sure that this person understood what she wanted done, and da 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 da. And I was like, girlfriend, no. Right. So if you are listening to this and you're in a position, right, that Galena just like articulated, right, here's your first thing is, one, you have to first acknowledge to yourself that there's a problem, which I think a lot of women tend to ostrich because we're socialized to be conflict avoidant. So we just kind of like don't want to acknowledge that that's happening. So we ostrich, and then we internalize and we say, what am I doing wrong that is leading to this? And I think that there's a lot of power in that question, because when we take accountability for our decisions, we can change things, right? And so taking accountability and saying, well, I hired this person, I'm responsible for the outcome here. Then taking it a step further, right? So you ostrich, you've internalized, and now you have to recognize like this is what's going on and accept that you have to do something different. Or like tank your company. That's an option too. But it's like one that I don't super recommend. So what I want you to do if you're in this position is to like acknowledge and accept that this is not working. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to draw a boundary. You're going to sit down and you're going to say, hey, Bob, I hired you to do this and it's not happening. And what are the things that you need from me in order to be successful? Right. And if he can't articulate, or he or she can't articulate that, then you know that this is not a right fit, because they're not able to say to you, hey, I'm drowning, or hey, I really need a new computer, or hey, I need Tuesdays off to go to therapy, or whatever the fuck it is, right? If they can't answer your question, what do you need from me to be able to do this? Then it doesn't work, because you can't change something that they don't understand what needs to be changed, right? So in that case, you have a hard discussion and you say, you are the sun and the moon and the stars, and everything about you is super duper awesome, but this is not a good fit. Let's say that they say, well, what I need from you is X, Y, and Z. If you know for sure you can provide those things, then you say, great, here's my deadline for things to turn around. Right. So if you've been in the corporate space, right, this is a PIP, a performance improvement plan, right? But if you're a small entrepreneur, what I want you to do is to say, great, you've told me that you needed X, Y, and Z. I'm going to provide X, Y, and Z to you by a week from now. And then 6 weeks from now, we're going to sit down and we're going to have the same conversation. And I expect things to have changed. If they say to you, I need X, Y, and Z, and you can't provide those things, that's the hard conversation again. And you say, you were the sun and the moon and the stars. Everything about you is great. I can't do that as much as I wish I could. And so this is not going to be a good fit. And like my wish for you, people that are hearing this, is that if you're in a position where you can't do something, that you don't internalize that and make it to mean that you're bad, right? It's just incongruent with where your company is. That doesn't mean that you've done something wrong or you've failed. It just means that sometimes you hire people and it's not a good fit. So that's my answer there.
I'm glad you covered such a wide range of it for someone who's still hearing this and thinking, okay, well, the idea of having to critique and give negative feedback or ask for something additional from someone, even when I'm the one paying them, but still the thought of giving that criticism just makes my stomach sink into my asshole. Do you recommend like a compliment sandwich, or is this the kind of thing that practice makes perfect? Because I find that I personally get desensitized the more I practice my fears, the more like I have to ask for so many things now that I have this podcast, and I've gotten a lot better at asking, because it really is like either someone says yes, great, fantastic, or they say no, or I just don't hear from them. And realistically, that's all that happens. But the version of me that was not so desensitized to asking for things, I send, an email request, and then I'm like, this person hates me. That's the story I'm spinning in my head. I'm like, I'm so annoying to this person. How could I ask for anything ever?
Yeah, exactly. How dare you? How dare you? Right. I think that you touched on exactly the root. Like, we are tribal creatures, right? It is very, very hard to fight a saber-toothed tiger all by yourself, or kill a woolly mammoth and turn it into burgers all by yourself. We are tribal creatures because that is what is required for survival. And like, as much as we're super cool, we haven't really evolved all that much from that like time period in terms of how our body and our brain and our emotions work. And so when we sit down with someone and we're going to confront them with something that we know is going to make them unhappy, our body experiences that as an existential threat, right? It's not just, oh, I'm going to make them sad, right? Because it sucks. Like, it sucks to fire someone. It sucks to get fired, right? But the fear aspect of that comes from your body is wired to be in community with your tribe. And so if you have adopted this person as part of your tribe, right, you're going to join my company. And now you're having to confront them about maybe they're not a good fit. Like that, like your body experiences that as something very, very, very scary. And so I think it's less about like a compliment sandwich. I don't like to blow smoke up people's ass, right? Like I don't say stuff that I don't really feel. If someone's not a great person and a cool person, I don't say like, you're the best ever. I'm just like, this isn't a good fit. And I appreciate your hard work. And I can see that you tried, and like, have a great life. The end. I don't think it gets fun. But I do think that there's ways to calm your body down in terms of that being like such a like unbelievably uncomfortable experience. So I know I do a lot of tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. I do that a couple times a week, just around feeling great and wanting my company to do well, wanting my marriage to be strong, all of that sort of stuff. I think EFT can help. I think therapy and coaching is really important. Having someone that can like be a sounding board. I've had 3 different coaches in my life for the past 6 years. I work with one and then I kind of like pivot back and forth, and they have made a huge difference in me being able, willing, and confident to have hard conversations like these. I think practice makes better. I don't think practice makes perfect. If you come to a part in your life where you find it really exciting to fire someone, you probably need some work.
You went too far. Overcorrected too hard.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe go watch like The Devil Wears Prada and then really think about where your life is. But yeah, I think that's my best advice.
I think a lot of us have an issue. Here, let me start with this anecdote, actually. There was a point at which I dated a guy who worked in recruiting, and I wish I remembered the specific statistic that he gave me, but the summary of the statistic was that like such a huge onslaught of men are far more likely to apply for jobs that they're absolutely not qualified for versus women don't do it, which to me, I think men in general have the ability to be audacious more than we do.
What a good word.
How do we find the audacity to ask for things that maybe are a reach, or maybe we just simply deserve, but don't feel like we're qualified to ask for? Because we totally sit that stuff out, whereas men are just like, oh, I can fly a plane if there's an emergency. Like, you go ask a man on the street if he thinks he can land a plane in an emergency, and 8 out of 10 of them will say yes. I don't think any woman I know would say yes.
I would totally say yes. Yeah, autopilot. I have taken a flying lesson, so I've done it once. I can do it again, I'm sure. So it was not in a commercial airliner, to be clear. The statistic that you're referencing, it's women have to believe that they're 80% qualified or more, right? So if there's 10 different things that are on this job description, right, you have to have a master's in communication, and you have to, study in Guam or whatever it is, right? Women have to look at this list and go, 8 out of 10. I better get figured out. For men, it's 3 out of 10. Men only feel that they have to be 30% qualified. And what I want to emphasize is like, this is not stuff that's like cognitively, like where women are sitting down and being like, well, I want to be 50% more qualified than Bob over there, right? The word Bob is getting a lot of use today. This I think again goes back to socialization, right? There's so many higher consequences for girls to get things wrong, right? Like we date the wrong boy, or we kissed him under the bleachers, or our makeup looks stupid, or our bra strap was showing, or whatever. Like we go through all of these little like micro experiences growing up that tell us we have to be like not just good, but like really, really, really on point. And so we face a lot of social consequences for not being super duper on top of our game. And men don't face those same consequences, right? They're more like a Rolex, like takes a licking and keeps on ticking. So you asked a specific question: where do you find the audacity? For me, this is stupid. I really like watching videos about men succeeding in different ways, and especially men in the U.S. Marine Corps. I have a lot of Marine clients, and I married a Marine just to like have that like true intimate awareness of how they think. So Marines are just like so like unhinged in terms of let's just get this done, and they're so focused on we're going to improvise and overcome. And the mentality that I have learned from working with Marines and now sleeping with one for 5 years is just this like audacious, like balls to the wall, like it has to happen, so let's just get it done. So there's a YouTube comedian, maybe you've heard of him because you're in the comedian circle. He's called The Fat Electrician, and his videos are just fantastic. And so they're historic videos about different moments of great triumph, and my son and I are addicted to them. And when I'm feeling just like I need some swagger in my step, I go watch one of those. I go listen to different podcasts of women succeeding at high levels too. But what I find is when it comes to being like in your face audacity, I find that more in how men lead than I do in how women lead. And so for me, rather than like bemoaning that, I've just leaned into it. And I work with a lot of men, and they resonate with that a lot. I once had a client, he re-signed with me. If someone works with me for a long time, I'll give them the option to re-sign for a full year as opposed to just kind of piecemeal. And so he re-signed for the full year. And I said to him, I was like, why did you, why? Like, what's the goal here? Why are we doing this? And he said, when I work with you, I feel like my dick is 10 feet.
What a compliment.
Like, I just can like take on anything. And I'm like, well, okay. So for me, I take a lot of inspiration from male leaders when I'm like working on my own kind of like owning it audacity quotient.
I mean, I think what's the worst that can happen realistically? Like, how do we take on this mindset of I can absolutely ask for things, whether I'm qualified for them or not, whether I think it's a reach or not? How do we find the POV of here's really realistically the worst thing that can happen, the worst outcome, and maybe it's something I can actually tolerate?
I think it's less about like I call that the eaten by wolves scenario. I'm like, what's the eaten by wolves scenario here? Like, if everything falls apart and I have to start over from square one, right? And I'm totally disgraced and living in a box, like, can I bounce back from that? And for me, I've been in recovery from drugs and alcohol since 2006, which is not to imply I've had continuous sobriety in that time, but I started my recovery journey 20 years ago, and I personally have bounced back from the live in a box moment, not quite living in the mom's basement moment. And I've had the privilege of meeting and becoming friends with a lot of people who had, actual live in a box moments, and watching people grow in their own capacity to lead themselves and then from there lead others, I think has been hugely inspirational to me in terms of having kind of like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm like, well, might have to start over from scratch. Now I'm about to be 43, have a child, right? I'm married, I have a house, I have all the things. And my tolerance for starting over is significantly different than it was at 30 and certainly at like 25. And so now I'm much more calculated in what I do, but I'm audacious in what I choose to like pursue, right? I'm just more like, I'm protective now. Before, I think I was like balls to the wall in a way where if there wasn't a safety net, I was comfortable figuring it out. And now I don't have tolerance for that at that level anymore. I'm like, I want stability, I want to retire in, a couple decades and have like the resources to be able to do that. So putting myself in a position where there's a real possibility that I'd have to start over from scratch holds very little appeal to me at this point in my life. But that's not to say that I don't have moments where I have to like cowgirl up. And in those moments, I think it's really about self-trust. It's less about what's the worst thing that can happen, and more about like, can I trust myself to handle any given scenario? Like whatever life throws my way, I have 100% confidence that like me and my higher power, we can figure it the fuck out. I'm like not even a little bit concerned. But that doesn't mean that I'm not calculated in the risks that I take.
Right. And of course, yeah, it definitely makes sense. And the part where obviously you don't want to put things on the line to the extent where it's going to be like physically or safety wise, like dangerous for you, dangerous for your family. But I do think there's a level of risk aversion or like inability to take any kind of risks that probably is holding people back. And I'm wondering, what are the ways to start examining that and growing a little more of a tolerance for it? Because there's a line where, okay, too much risk obviously is a terrible idea. You don't want to be out on the street, but not enough risk is also a terrible idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think this comes down to that kind of like cheesy, like, what's your why? Right? Like you can absolutely spend your life not pursuing things because you're afraid of what might happen. And then when you reach, my age, older, right? I've worked with clients. I have current clients up into their late 70s, and there's aspect of it, not with any current client, right? But I'm thinking of a couple past clients who were in their 70s, and there's huge aspects of regret of not being more open to doing things that felt uncomfortable and risky. And so I think it comes down to like, what is the worst that can happen in terms of not trying something? Like if I choose to not, online date and put myself out there and this and that and the other thing, like what's the worst that can happen? Well, I'm eating like cat food and crackers in my 70s all by myself watching Netflix, and like I don't want that life. So I'm going to go through the like uncomfortable process of doing stuff to find a partner, right? Like when I knew I was ready to like have the one, right? Not just a person, but the one. Like I took a lot of balls to the wall steps to facilitate something like that happening, and indeed it did, right? And so I think when we think about like, how do I get over the fear of initially trying something or of taking even minimal risks, flipping it and being like, well, what's the worst that can happen if I don't do this? If I don't pursue a career, if I don't start a company that I'm really passionate about, if I don't, have children, or if I don't tell my husband, no, I don't want to have children, right? There's a lot of scary things in life that if you don't decide that the outcome of them is more important than your fear, you're going to end up living like a very, very small life. And nothing's guaranteed even within that. Like, fuck, I might get diagnosed with cancer tomorrow I had a friend was diagnosed with cancer in the second week of November, and she was dead in January. Like, there's nothing guaranteeing that living a safe life is going to result in actual safety.
Great point. I have like goosebumps from that. That's so true. There's an analogy that you have that I want to hear the explanation to and how it pertains to all of this. The blooming onion analogy.
Oh, the Bloomin Onion.
The Bloomin Onion, yeah.
I was like, where is she going with?
What is that?
Okay, so, right, hopefully if you haven't had a Bloomin Onion, you're missing out. Go get one. I think they're at Outback Steakhouse.
Yes.
Like, all the steakhouse has like some version of it. Okay, so they're at Outback Steakhouse. Right, onion has many layers, right? And you peel back and you peel back and you peel back and you peel back. And then in the center is like the juicy goodness of the sauce that you dip it in, right? Let's not stretch the analogy too far, right? The point is that you can peel back these layers. Like, any given thing that you are thinking about doing has layers to it, right? And so the question to ask yourself that peels back the layer is to say, well, what does it mean about me? So if we were to take I want to come up with a very concrete example here.
Can I give you one? Oh, you have it.
Yeah, give me. Oh, let's do it. Yeah, let's go. We're playing with. We're firing with live ammo now. Let's go.
Sure. So in comedy, you have to ask for a lot of things, in podcasting as well. And that used to be an absolutely paralyzing experience for me, to have to reach out and get people to come do the show or get people to book me on certain shows. And when I've reached out to, let's say, comedy clubs and emailed the booker and not heard back, and then followed up, which is even more scary for me, and not heard back again, my brain likes to go, well, they hate me. They're mad at me. Everyone's always mad at me.
Okay, let's go. Ready? Are you like game for being,
yes,
like, as my husband calls it, psychobabble? Let's psychobabble you a little bit. Okay. What does it mean about you if they hate you? Let's say they do. They fucking hate you, Galena. They think you're the worst. What does that mean about you?
That I'll never get the accolades that I am looking for.
Okay, cool. What does it mean about you if you don't get the accolades?
That I don't make money doing what I want to do. I have to take a job that feels like it's killing my soul, or I have to starve and end up homeless on the street. Okay.
So there's two avenues to go through. One is I don't get the accolades. That's about validation, right? You're good enough to be in the tribe. And then there's I'm going to be in a box on the streets, and that's about survival, right? So it goes back to those two core things of, I need to be part of the tribe. And if I'm not, then I'm going to be, on the streets. What does it mean about you if you end up on the streets? You have to go to a women's shelter. You have nothing. You've lost everything except those cute hoop earrings. All of it is gone. You've just absolutely fucking bit it. It's not good. You're the worst. Everybody hates you. And you're in a women's shelter and you're all alone trying to figure it out. What does that mean about you?
Ooh. That I've failed at the mission, that I have to start over, which, interestingly enough, we just talked about that.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean about you if you failed at the mission? What kind of person are you? What kind of person fails?
Not a good enough person.
Mm-hmm. What happens if you're not good enough? What does it mean about you?
I don't know. I think I would lose sight of where to derive meaning if I wasn't worthy of the thing.
Okay. And so what does it mean about you if you're on moored and you don't know where your next step is?
It hits the worthiness wound real hard.
Mm-hmm. Because your sense of worth is predicated on having it all together.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So that's the Bloomin' Onion, right? Is we pull back and you're like, well, I failed and it didn't work out. I had a plan and it didn't work, right? So if we reconstruct the onion, it's about validation and it's about other people saying you're good enough, because if you're good enough, then it means you're worthy of the success. And if you're worthy of the success, it means that how you view yourself, that worldview can stay intact. And if it falls apart because all of the things don't work out, how you see you is fundamentally threatened. So the way to reconstruct yourself is to decide no matter what, I have my back, right? Like if I relapse, if I decide I'm going to go figure out how to get some Xanax and I'm going to get a bunch of vodka and I relapse and my son's dad takes away my kid and I lose my company and I don't have the only thing I'm left with is my 13-year-old car that I have the title to, right? And I'm living in the back of it. I would still believe in myself and I would trust that something good was going to happen because I was going to make it happen, right? If you can have that faith and self-trust and determination and absolute unwillingness to abandon yourself, you can go for anything, because nothing is on the line anymore.
Oh, that's so powerful. I speak on manifestation a lot on this show because I believe in it all the way up to, I like to pretend that I'm on the fence with woo-woo stuff, but I've been told by several people that I'm not on the fence.
I was like, even if you're not.
I can't even see the fence. I'm so far away from it. But I would love, what is your take on like manifestation, mindset stuff, affirmations?
Yeah, I don't call it manifestation anymore. For a while I did. For me, like fundamentally, like the Dr. Liz theory of the case on manifestation is that you feel the feeling that you think you'll have by having the thing, and then it can come to you because you're no longer right. Like if the thing that my husband, right, when I was calling in my partner, right, the feeling of having him was here. And so my only emotional work was to get myself to here. And then it was very easy because I knew that there was nothing at risk. Because if he didn't show up, he or she, I'm half gay, right? If that person didn't show up, who the fuck cares? Because I already felt that way, right? And so I was walking around in the world with a very real, like, vibe of if something good happens to me, that's amazing. And if something good doesn't happen to me, that's also fine. And so people weren't like, I went on so many dates. There was 1 week I went on 4 different first dates all in 1 week, right? And I was able to, I called them first interviews. I was able to decide that these people were not like, he's not my person, she's not my person, he's not my person, right? I like put it in the discard pile because I didn't have anything at stake. So if I didn't meet my person, it didn't fucking matter. And so I could say no to the people that weren't right for me. And as a result, like the man I married is so unbelievably right for me. It is like crazy. And the way that I did that in terms of like affirmations and whatnot was I just decided that he had already showed up. Like I would wake up in the morning and I would roll over in my queen size bed and I would look at the empty pillow and I would say good morning. Like I was so all in on this had already happened that the idea that I hadn't met someone yet was just like ludicrous. Like this was already happening. And so I'm not stressed about it happening. And I think where people get really tripped up is they set the intention, right? Or they're calling in something and then they behave and believe in a way that says this isn't here yet. And for you to manifest something, it already has to be there in order for it to show up. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dr. Liz, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, if they want to work with you, where should they go?
So go to my website is the easiest way to find me. It's just www.drlizdubois. I added a new last name, but I didn't change my domain because I'm lazy. So it's just drlizdubois.com. You can find me on Facebook. It's, I believe, facebook.com/bizdrliz. And I am on TikTok as the Dr. Liz, THEDRLIZ.
Amazing. And please keep me up to date when you do your TED Talk, because I can't wait to watch.
I can't wait for it to happen. I'm so excited. And, there's the manifestation too, right? Like there's no part of me that's like, I have to make it happen. I'm like, I have a theme for every year. And like the year I got divorced was the theme of, it was the year of good enough, right? I was just like and this is the year of magical shit. And I've had so much magical shit happen already. It's like, what's next?
Incredible.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.